The reason I chose ITI was because my younger brother went to ITI, and I watched that boy's life changed in front of my eyes, and I'm like, okay. I worked in the plant for at least 12 years, and I had 12 years experience, but I never was able to get to that operator position because I didn't have the certification, and that's what ITI gave me. Just off of my offer letter from my job that ITI placed me at, I'm able to purchase my home right now. All you have to do is apply yourself. If I could do it, anybody could do it.
This is Sports 225. Well, we'll start this show with a story. So in 1984, I came to Baton Rouge in the summer to interview for the job I eventually took at the Baton Rouge Morning Advocate. And it was ridiculously hot. And one of the things I did one of the nights was laying in the hotel room, watch the USA women's basketball team win the Olympic gold medal in Los Angeles. And I was intrigued because I was in Louisiana and they kept referring to this little point guard, the one with the braids, that she was from Tickfaw, Louisiana, which I couldn't even imagine a place called Tickfaw, but I knew that it wasn't all that far away. Here we are, Kim Mulkey, 9 Olympiads later and 37 years later, and I'm actually interviewing you for the first time. And I think that's fascinating.
Well, Lee, shame on you. You should have picked up the phone and found me, and we could have talked back then, man. That seems tons of years ago. But first of all, let me apologize about my voice. I'm fighting off a respiratory deal. Thank God for grandchildren. They bring you all their diseases because you can't quit snuggling with them. But yeah, 84 Olympics, Los Angeles. I am from Tickfaw. I like to tell people I'm from Tangipahoa Parish because I went to all the public schools in Hammond. My rural address was Tickfaw, and I went to church in Tallbenny. So I take claim to anything in Tangipahoa Parish.
Well, I just love saying Tickfaw. But no, actually, it's not true. But I have interviewed you. And I remember we spent a better part of an afternoon once when I came up to Louisiana Tech. And that was a long time ago for another story. But that's here and there. But I really do want to ask you about the 84 Olympics, because for those of you who don't know, it's one of the most fascinating historical events in women's basketball. There were just so many epic personalities. Number one, of course, the USA women won the gold medal, just absolutely destroyed South Korea by 30 points in the championship game. And it was one of the closest games they had of the tournament. And Kim, the people on that team, Pat Summitt, the coach, Kay Yao, one of the legendary figures, on the staff. And then your teammates, Annie Donovan, another Louisiana player, Janice Lawrence, who was from Mississippi. I thought that was incredible too, that there was a Mississippi and a Louisiana girl, on the team. Of course, Cheryl Miller, and you could go on. It was just an incredible, epic part of American sports history.
We had quite the team. And I guess when I think back on that Olympic team and the experience, you got to remember the Russians boycotted because we had boycotted the 80 Olympics. It didn't bother us one bit. An Olympic gold medal, regardless of what countries boycott or not, you're an Olympian. At that time, it was truly about the amateurs. Now you got pros and all that in the Olympics, but at that time, it was the ultimate prize that you could win as an amateur athlete. When I think about the players on that team, we had 6'8" Ann Donovan, who is now deceased. It's just hard for me to believe. All 3 of our Olympic coaches, Pat Summitt, Kay Yao, and Nancy Darsh, are no longer with us either. And they were such outstanding coaches and people and died at such young ages. I have in my office before I left Baylor, and it will be in my office when I move in. We're renovating right now at LSU, is that Olympic team with the coaches. And I look at it sometimes and I think, what happened? They all died at such young ages. When I think about the personalities of all the players and the coaches, you got to remember Bob Knight was the men's coach on that 84 team, and the personalities of those players, it was special. You had Jordan on that team, Patrick Ewing on that team, the list goes on, Steve Alford. And we stayed in the Olympic Village there on the campus of USC. I got to open the windows and look out in the mornings and watch the diving competition. We didn't get to spend much time at other competitions because we were playing ourselves. But the most fun I had, other than winning the gold medal and having that national anthem played and the medal put around your neck, was afterwards. The Southland Corporation, which is the subsidiary of 7-Eleven stores at the time, sponsored a trip, a 5-city tour of all the not gold medals, but all the medal winners from the USA. And we toured together. We had the ticker tape parade in New York City. We went to a Dallas Cowboys game. I mean, we met Ronald Reagan and Nancy Reagan. That is when you relaxed. That is when you had fun and you got to meet other athletes.
Wow, I forgot about that. And that tour, that was fabulous. And that must have been so much fun. I would bet from that tour, you have Olympic friends that you keep up with to this day, not from women's basketball.
Well, not so much keep up and personal friends, but you go, I've got pictures with her. Yeah, we spoke, we talked. You know, I guess as athletes, you just go on about your normal lives and your careers that you don't stay in touch. I remember, of course, Mary Lou Retton, and I think it's so ironic because she had a daughter that came to Baylor and was on the A&T team, and then she had a couple of daughters at LSU on gymnastics team. And I think, you know, we first met at the Olympics, and that was when she had her perfect 10. But yes, memories. That's all we have, Lee, in our life are memories, and nobody can ever take those away from us unless you have some illness or disease later in life.
You were the smallest person probably on the 84 women's Olympic team, weren't you?
I don't know. It'd probably be a competition between me and Lee Henry. Lee Henry was the other point guard, and she played for Tennessee and Pat Summitt. So honestly, I don't know what Lee would list her height as, but I would say we were very, very similar in height.
Yeah, you both listed at 5'4", but you towered over Mary Lou Retton.
Well, listen, I always wanted to be around the gymnasts because they made me feel tall. You're absolutely right.
Hey, let's take a break. I want to stick with the Olympics a little bit more, but Kim Mulkey, of course, is the new LSU women's basketball coach, and we might talk some LSU women's basketball at some point, but I'm just fascinated by the whole Olympic experience. She's Kim Mulkey. I'm Lee Feinswag at Sports 225.
Who says you need a vacation for a view like this? Or, I wish there was a place to get in shape. Try getting on the beaten path. Discover an ever-expanding network of trails and greenways. Some quintessential Southern beauty. Or romp through the woods in a magical land between the rivers. There's more to explore than you ever imagined. Beyond the swing sets. Breck, we are more than a playground.
All right, we're back on Sports 225 visiting with Kim Mulkey, the new LSU basketball coach, but we're reminiscing about the 1984 Olympics when she was, I don't know, were you 22 at the time, maybe?
Somewhere in that area. Let's see, 4 years of college. So yeah, right around 22, 23.
You have in common with LSU volleyball coach Fran Flory that you won an AIAW national championship. She won one as a volleyball player at Texas. You won one at Louisiana Tech, and then you won an NCAA championship at Louisiana Tech, vaulted into the Olympics, and then from there you went right into coaching. Isn't that right? Could you have had the opportunity to have gone to Europe and played pro or done anything like that?
Well, back then you didn't have as many opportunities, but there were opportunities. Lee, I kind of was a person that set goals for myself, and I said, after the 84 Olympics, I'm going to put those tennis shoes on a shelf. I'm done. There's nothing else that I care to accomplish in basketball. I've done it all. I did receive a postgraduate scholarship from the NCAA. At the time, they chose 5 men and 5 women in basketball, and we could go and basically get our master's degree wherever we wanted. And I chose to stay at Louisiana Tech, and I was working on my MBA when the opportunity came to become a coach. And I'm sure you've heard the story, but I was in my one of my classes, and the Louisiana Tech police came and got me out of class and said the then president, Dr. F.J. Taylor, would like to meet with me after class, and that it was not anything bad. He just needed me to come see him. So I did. And he informed me that he wanted me to be Leon Barmore's assistant, that Sanja Hogue had retired or resigned, and he wanted Leon to be the head coach, but he wanted me on his staff. And I told him, no, I'm done. And he wouldn't take no for an answer. And I then said, no head coach wants to be told who their assistants have to be. He goes, Leon wants you on his staff. So then Coach Barmore called me later that night. And the rest is history. Those two guys are responsible for me being a coach, and they knew more about what I was supposed to do than I did. I was working on my MBA and thought that I wanted to travel across the country, be a CEO of Fortune 500 companies. And here I am coaching, and what a great profession it is. And it's just the perfect fit for me.
Well, it's a perfect segue to what I was going to ask you about being on that team, because you had the opportunity to be coached by what would become one of your future rivals in Pat Summitt. And of course, the legendary Kay Yao. You mentioned Nancy Darch, she was at Ohio State, if memory serves. She was the head coach there later.
She was several places, but she played for a national championship against Texas Tech and lost to Cheryl Swoops for the national championship. Katie Smith was on her team at Ohio State.
Wow. So what did you know at the time that those coaches were influencing you, or were you putting anything into your memory banks about ever paying attention to them as coaches, or was it anything you drew on later from them?
I don't think at the time I was studying what I was learning from them, because at that time I didn't ever think I would be a coach. But I think subconsciously you learn from everybody that either has taught you in school or coached you. And you remember things that, wow, that was motivational, or wow, that's not me and I don't ever want to be like that. You learn throughout life. Your life's experiences groom you into who you are. Whether it's good or bad, they groom you to become the person you are. And I think back on things that my teachers said or did, and you learn.
Let me ask you a little bit more about the Olympic team as we finish up this segment, and then I promise we'll talk about current day basketball. But what was it like to play with Cheryl Miller? She just seemed to have such a dynamic personality, and at that time was such a fabulous player.
Well, Cheryl was a game changer. You know, we were all good. We were all, understanding of how good we were individually. But then you had those players who were just maybe a level above you. And Cheryl Miller, during the era that she was at USC, was just unbelievable. Cheryl and I got along great. I think if you interviewed Cheryl, she will tell you, I loved playing with Kim Mulkey. She was the point guard that got the ball to us, fired us up. We would run into each other on the recruiting trail because she did a little stint in coaching. And to this day, we will communicate periodically about things, and the Hall of Fame, and just seeing her at the Final Four. There's an award named after her. She has the utmost respect for Louisiana Tech women's basketball during that era, and Kim Mulkey. And you mentioned my teammate, Janice Lawrence, who was from Lucedale, Mississippi, who played with me at Louisiana Tech and on the Olympic team. We had some battles with USC and Cheryl Miller. They were either ranked number 1 and we were 2, or we were 1 and they were 2. Great team she played on. She had the McGee twins. Cynthia Cooper was on that team. So we had some epic battles.
Man, that roster, I'm looking at it. I printed it out earlier to refresh my memory. I remembered most of the people, but Teresa Edwards, who played at Georgia, my gosh, was she good. And Lynette Woodard, who played at Kansas. Those that you talk about, that whole team was just made up of warriors. Annie Donovan, who you mentioned earlier. The whole list of them. It was just such a great team.
In fact, Teresa was the youngest on our team. And I love Teresa Edwards because she was just happy. She always had a beautiful smile on her face. And she went on to play in many more Olympics, but she was the youngest on the team. I saw not a lot of dunking in women's basketball when I played, but I played with 2 girls on that Olympic team that could dunk it effortlessly. And people tend to forget a young lady named Carol Menken-Shout. She was married. She was from Oregon State. She could dunk the ball effortlessly.
Yeah, 6'5".
Oh yeah, and just go up and dunk it. Ann Donovan on a good day could get up and dunk it. So those young ladies were at that time dunking it long before the dunk became pretty prevalent in women's basketball.
So when Brittany Griner dunked for Baylor, you were like, ho hum, seen there, been there, done that.
Well, listen, she could do it front, side, hook, whatever she wanted to do. Hers was a little bit different. Brittany Griner played above the rim. Carol Minkenshout and Ann Donovan didn't play above the rim. A lot of their work was done below the rim. And then when they could explode up and get above the rim, they could dunk it. Brittany could do it anytime she wanted to. In fact, I always kind of gave her a hard time because dunk it. Why lay it up right there when you can dunk it? And she can just do it at any moment she wants to.
I love these stories. She's Kim Mulkey, the LSU women's basketball coach. I'm Lee Feinswag at Sports 225.
Who says you need a vacation for a view like this? Or, I wish there was a place to get in shape. Try getting on the beaten path. Discover an ever-expanding network of trails and greenways. Some quintessential Southern beauty. Or romp through the woods in a magical land between the rivers. There's more to explore than you ever imagined. Beyond the swing sets. Breck, we are more than a playground.
Back on Sports 225, talking with Kim Mulkey, the LSU women's basketball coach. Are there any differences and parallels, anything you can draw from when you took over the job at Baylor and taking over the job at LSU?
Yes, let's talk about the similarities. The similarities are that, we need to upgrade facilities, and we're doing that as we speak. When I got to Baylor 21 years ago, same exact thing took place. We needed to make the locker room better. We needed to make the offices better. We did that. A big difference in the two schools is when I took over at Baylor, they had no history of NCAA Final Fours or excellence in women's basketball. The highest they had ever achieved was the finals of the NIT. They lost to Penn State in an NIT championship that was hosted at Baylor. At LSU, they've got like 6 Final Fours. People know of the 5 NCAA Final Fours, but they forget there was an AIAW runner-up.
And there was some Final Fours there where they had some really tough luck against Baylor.
Well, yes, I wasn't going to mention that because I'm now employed at LSU, but in 2005, we had played LSU earlier in the year and they beat us. And then in the semifinals of the Final Four in Indianapolis at the RCA Dome, we were having to play them in the semifinals. And we were down double digits. I don't know if it was 15, 17. I'm not even sure. I just know we were about to be blown out on national television. And ironically, I introduced a 3-zone practice the previous day. And if you know anything about my career, it's hard for me to play a zone defense. And we went to the zone defense in the second half, got back in the game and ended up winning the game by, I think, 5 points or so, and then beat Michigan State in the championship. So we have history at LSU to sell. And we have footage of sold out crowds, and we have current players playing in the WNBA. Sylvia Fowles, Simone Augustus just retired. Sylvia Fowles was just named National Defensive Player of the Year. We have that history. At Baylor 21 years ago, we didn't have that. So there are things that are similar and there are things that are different.
You remember the old Mary Tyler Moore show where Lou Grant is talking to Mary Tyler Moore and he goes, "You got spunk. I hate spunk." but you still have all of the spunk that you've always had and the energy to want to get LSU to where it needs to be. Obviously, you wouldn't have taken the job if you didn't think you could win here and win at the highest levels. But you still are driven from within.
Well, let me jog my memory. What I remember about Mary Tyler Moore was Dick Van Dyke always tripping over the ottoman there. Is that right?
Yeah, that was the show before.
Yeah, spunk I take that as a compliment. I call it passion. I call it intensity. I call it just fiery. I played like that. It's my personality. I want to give everything I have to the people I coach, and I want them in return to give me everything they have. And that's why I stay on referees. I want them to give me their best job that night. Sometimes I'm on referees just to keep them on their toes, and people think I'm just riding them, and I'm really not. I just have a job to do, and I don't ever want to be on that sideline being passive. And I think as a player, what motivated me? Was it a passive coach, or was it a coach that had fire in their belly? It was a coach that had fire in their belly. And I want to show that to my players and to the fans that I'm fighting for our university. And I don't ever want to embarrass them, but I want to show them that, hey, I'm proud to be where I am. And that's just who I am. I think it keeps me young. I don't want to ever be around lazy people. I don't ever want to be around people who are content. I'm at a different age now than I was when I took over the Baylor job. And I think with age, people think you get tired easier. I think they think you lose your fight. I do think you get tired easier because that's a natural process, but you never lose your fight. I think with age comes wisdom. And I think I'm a lot smarter coach today than I was 21 years ago. And I think you learn how to really turn it on, when not to turn it on, but you share that wisdom with your players. I am not so egotistical that I won't be able to realize, hey, I can't reach young people anymore. When I can't reach them anymore and I can't put a product on that floor that everybody's proud of, then you step away. I see so many coaches who stay in the game too long. It's time to move on and let somebody else do it. Now, that's their business, but I see it all the time in all sports. I think it's hard to let go. I've said it from the time I started coaching. I'm not a lifer. I'm not one of these you're going to see in here, and I'm going to be 70 and 80 years old and drop dead on the sideline. I do have a life outside of basketball.
Yes,
I have children and I have grandchildren. And when I go home from basketball, I go in my yard and I do yard work. So to each his own, each coach is different. But while I've got it still flowing through the veins, I'm out there sharing it with young people.
Hold that thought. Of course, her son Kramer plays for the Cardinals and in their organization. Her daughter has a kid. So she's, like she said, a grandma. I'm going to send a text to Dee Cantner and ask her about what you really say to referees. I'm Lee Feinsfog. She's Kim Mulkey. It's Sports 225.
Who says you need a vacation for a view like this? Or, I wish there was a place to get in shape. Try getting on the beaten path. Discover an ever-expanding network of trails and greenways. Some quintessential southern beauty. Or romp through the woods in a magical land between the rivers. There's more to explore than you ever imagined. Beyond the swing sets. Breck, we are more than a playground.
Coming down the home stretch of Sports 225, just a little bit of time left because we've been having such a good time. We talk long on all the previous three segments. Go to sports225.com for all the show listings of when we're on CST, Cox Sports Television, Scary Enough in 18 states, and on Cox 4, which is your view. Kim Mulkey is the LSU women's basketball coach. You got a roster this year that's very interesting. 2 fifth years, 4 grad students, 2 seniors, a junior, 2 softs, and 4 freshmen coming in. What a weird collection of a roster. Tell me what, in a real short nutshell, what can we expect this year?
Well, you're going to expect kids to play hard. They're excited. They're going to play hard. They want to win more than they won the previous year. And you're right. But I'm teaching them all. Usually when you've been somewhere for a period of time, your upperclassmen teach your younger players. I'm having to teach everything to every player. I've enjoyed coaching them. They're giving me everything they have. We had 300 people at our first practice. We had former players at the first practice that I didn't even know were coming back. People are excited. I tell them I can't wave a magic wand and get enough wins for you in the first year, but I'm as impatient as you are, and we're going to work extremely hard to turn this thing around.
Awesome. She's Kim Mulkey, the first-year LSU women's basketball coach. And first year sounds kind of interesting, but fascinating interview. Thanks for talking about so much cool stuff, and thanks for taking the time.
You're welcome, Lee.
And thank you for watching Sports 225.
At carnival time by Baton Rouge Bay, that's the site of my story.